So let's move on to the central figure here, at least central in the layout here of this page, this double page spread. Let's see, my pen. And this character here is going to have essentially a metallic type skin. So, we're going to create some pretty high contrast here as far as these little kind of reflective type surfaces. And basically what I've done is I've penciled the character underneath, just kind of giving it a basic form. But I find that when I'm drawing metallic type of surfaces, especially with the figure, I just think that you're at least this is what I do. I kind of make up kind of like the squiggles and the swirls and all that cool stuff that would give it the impression of it being metallic, because it's kind of hard to reference metallic figures. Although I probably shouldn't say that, because I can probably in this day and age with AI art and reference that probably has already been done and has come before, it's probably not that difficult to find a metallic reference. But at the same time, I want to have fun with this and kind of want to just take this, do this in my own type of feel and style. So, the part of what will happen is when I color this, there will be additional details added, because I'm not just entirely doing this as a pen and ink drawing, but I still have to give it the impression that it's going to have something, a shiny metallic surface. So kind of do that. I'm using my favorite IGB Crowquill pen here in Procreate, and this pen is pretty good for pretty much drawing everything. And I like it that way because it can be really easy to fall into a routine where you've got a pen or a brush for every single little thing. And sometimes that's valid, but the more simple and the more simplified I can, at least for myself speaking, keep things as far as brushes and pens, keep that simplified, then the faster I think the drawing can go. And that's certainly been my experience here. This character here is kind of a later addition. I'm going to talk about my comic book series here, The Realm Ethereal, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of, as I'm drawing here, talk a little bit more about the series in general. So what I want to do is take what I'm going to actually be doing is a few years back, I drew this series that I had intended to release as a comic book strip, but and I think I tried it for a little bit, but it never did get off the ground. And that's not to say that there was anything holding it back, other than at the time my own time constraints and my own abilities to just kind of keep to a schedule, especially since I was working full-time. I'm still kind of working full-time in a way, but now I'm working from home, and because I do work from home, I should be able to bring back part of this series. And part of what's fun about this character was actually was a different character, a different series way before I came up with the Realm Ethereal, but I still had the character designed and created from, I think, maybe 5 years ago, maybe more than 5 years ago. And so there was definitely, again, plans for me to take this into a comic book series, self-published on my own. But again, I wasn't able to. But with that being said, since I'm all about using everything I've done before in my own self-created universes here for these characters that I'm making and for these comic book stories, why not go back and pick and utilize some of the artwork that I've done in the past, as I've mentioned here, and include it in with what I'm doing. I think that's one of the cool things about being able to be your own creator and kind of like the person that funds all of this from the artistic point of view, and really from all other aspects when you think about it. I'm pretty much flying solo here, and I'm the sole creator of this title. I can kind of do these things. I can, pivot midstream in the story and in the artwork. Yeah, and I have done that. And it's also been a pretty cool learning experience as far as, what I'm capable of and what I like doing and what I don't like doing in terms of like artwork and stories and how I want to approach, writing a story. So this character here has existed before in another universe, but as I like to say, these universes for me, they're all really connected, and I'm able to move these characters around however I want to. And I think part of that is because I'm still developing a readership, and my readership it's not all that big. So I don't know who's paying attention. So a lot of times I think when you have that and no one's paying attention, well, you might as well just draw to kind of keep yourself pleased. And I think that will lead to creating cool artwork, coming up with cool designs, and keeping things fresh and interesting, if for nothing more than to keep myself interested in what I'm doing. And that's what's happening here. I really am doing that. And I see nothing wrong with that. Again, for the 1, 2, or 3 of you that are following along here, thank you so much. But for the most part, I mean, you gotta know I'm drawing these things for me. Anyone who wants to like tag along and follow along with this, I think you're awesome. But this artwork here, I've just kind of keep on working on it and see what kind of trips my trigger as far as what I'm bringing to the table. Because for right now, that's all I can do, really. All I can do is just really make the best art I can do, the best art I can make, and just keep putting it out there and making sure that it is at least entertaining to myself. Because if let's face it, most artists out here, we're just kind of in the void, putting work out into the void here, and people who find us and comment and like or whatever, we appreciate that. And to a certain extent, there is a certain motivation in trying to get likes and clicks and all that stuff. But if that's your main motivation, I don't know how that can sustain what's ultimately what the creator wants to do. Because ultimately, the creator, especially on your own title, you've got to kind of forge your own way into creating work that is both pleasing to you and that can, hopefully translate into people finding and discovering the work and deciding that they too like what they see and that they want to learn more. At the very least, they just want to keep seeing what you're doing. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm creating my own characters, creating my own universes, creating my own worlds, and I look forward truly to making as much as possible to really making the best art I can and keeping it interesting. So this character, the body is just about done. Rendered her physique in, again, metallic again, and I'm also trying to be a little more simplified in my drawing style. It's really funny because I will see artwork online that's like really simplified and it looks great, and I'm like, yeah, that's the direction I want to go in. And then I'll see artwork at the click of a button on some other feed or Pinterest or something that's like super detailed out, and I'm like, wow, I really want to do artwork like that as well. But ultimately, I just got to keep in mind that I'm doing artwork here for my comic book series, and I am treating this as if it is like a comic book. And there's all kinds of styles you can do with comics. You can get super detailed, you can get super simplistic, or just super clean, whatever you want to use for that phrase, clean versus simple. Ultimately, for me, I like to think about being efficient with my brushwork. In this case, this is what I'm doing. I'm inking, and so minimal lines, I don't think is the right way to think about it. I think it's, and I'm doing this because I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. But I think for me, the way I think of it is, it's maybe too far. Let's go back. For me, I think maybe what it comes down to is just like an efficiency of brushstroke. And I've talked about this before, where sometimes there's a reliance on over rendering and over noodling things and getting super super detailed in the work you're doing. And super detailed artwork is nice to look at. But I also know from experience that putting too much detail in can really hinder the process as far as getting the work done. And I certainly don't want to fall into that camp. And it's always, for sure, it's always a fine line between how much detail is enough to, some people put in, what is a great amount of detail for one person may not be for another artist in terms of like their style, right? So this is where I work with trying to figure out, what is the happy medium for what I'm doing here, and that can create pretty cool looking artwork. Because details are a good thing to have. I think if they're the right kind of details, and by right kind of details I mean it's not necessarily like a bunch of cross hatchings or tick marks. That certainly is a lot of detail, I guess, if you were to just count how many brush strokes you're laying down as the writer or the inker or the artist. And then you have the kind of details where we're talking about texture, and we're talking about let's say, how detailed do you make a car in terms of like what kind of model is it? Are you drawing a classic car, or you're drawing a fantasy car, and just the amount of details that would lend itself to providing a certain amount of believability, reality, or credibility, and like believing that something is like actually can function regardless in whatever kind of this tale you're telling, whether it's a futuristic tale. Does that spaceship look legit? Does it look realistic enough to be plausible that it can fly? Does that if you're drawing a castle, does it look correct? Does it look like it has the right structure for like the walls or the moat or a drawbridge? Does it look correct? Does it look believable? So with my inking style here for this metallic person, this is funny. Like, this is totally like, I'm not referencing anything metallic at this point for this character. So I'm just kind of going off of like my own instincts here, and just gonna make sure that, because this is gonna be a marriage of not just line art, but also color, I am gonna rely on the coloring phase to help give that additional impression or those effects of it looking metallic. But for the most part, I try to keep, sharp contrast here, not as much detail in terms of, like, for instance, if you contrast this hair, like, it's got a little more detail. It's definitely got more darks in it, but then it's got more like strands. Whereas here, the hair, I'm just really, and she's supposed to have kind of like a metallic hair. And I mean, it's a total fantasy world anyway. But again, I want to just keep it to where these reflections are just kind of, they're simple, they're simplistic. The edges will be sharp. There's not really a whole lot of like halftones in here. There will be, some amount of slight texture I can see myself adding when I go to color the character. But in this stage here, with the texture, like for instance here, we have more cross hatching here to show more of a kind of a gradual turning from shadow to light. Same thing with this part of Adon's costume here. Some cross hatching to show some gradual transition from the dark to the light. Whereas with this metallic character, it's pretty much all sharp edges. I'm not adding any like cross hatching like that. I mean, I could, but I think it takes away from, it doesn't differentiate itself from the other characters, which are more flesh, muscle, and bone. Whereas this character, at least surface wise, is just like metallic. Yeah, let's add some contrast here. She's all pretty much just straight up line. I mean, it's all line, but there's no feathering anywhere. There's a little bit of this here, just because quite honestly, my hand likes doing that. It's true. Yeah, we artists have a certain temperament, or a certain not temperament, a certain way that our hand just moves, and I think that's just what gives artists their style. You can tell just by the mark we make, and like the confidence we have in the stroke that we're making. I mean, like, I think like the more well-known artists are just like, they're super confident in what they draw, and it comes through. It comes through in their artwork, I believe. Let's see, I have a bit of a tangent here with their hair kind of running up against the edge of this oval, so over lips. So let's change that. Here's the thing, gotta make sure my layers are correct. Yeah, okay, so the character is above this line I drew here. So I'm gonna do a simple little thing here. Take advantage of the fact that we're working digitally. And I'm just gonna slide this over. I'm gonna create an overlap between this oval and her hair, her metallic hair. So to perform some surgery here to connect these pieces again. And sometimes you can do that, like what I just did. You can, just move a piece, crop it, or I should say cut it and move it over. Sometimes, depending if there's a bunch of cross hatching, I may just have to totally redraw this hair here. But for now, we're just going to simply do this kind of little correction here. I'm going to add some more, a little bit more of a shade. Yeah, whoops. Thickening up on me a little bit more, a little white space here, which will be light in the final colored piece here. We'll get these overlapping edges cleaned up. Some background stuff there. Oh, it's actually, oh no, see, this part of that is the hair, and then I've got a layer called background inks. I'll bet that's where this little tick is at from. No, it's not. That is a danger in working with a lot of layers, I have to admit. Sometimes things can get buried or lost, and then after a while you kind of realize where is this stuff, and I just found that where that piece was at. So glad I got that taken care of. Go back to our original ink layer, and then for this overlap here, this oval, let's just go to the oval layer. And then we'll clear this out. And then we'll have her hair now overlapping that part of the oval. Okay, so now the only thing left here is her hands. So I'm gonna do my best to just go ahead and get this, kind of knock this out here. The drawing underneath it was fairly loose, but I could have tightened it up even more. But this is where I got to take a look and say, hey, this drawing is going to reproduce a lot smaller on the page. So there's a little bit of, you can kind of forgive the hands not being super detailed out. And that's something that I'm, again, always want to be very mindful of, is of not adding in unnecessary details, like not adding anything that needs to be added in, included here that is not going to have any benefit, just simply because it's not going to print out big enough to make that much of a difference. So for here, it's just going to be simple, like fingers pointing or stretched out. The hand is open. Draw that, and then maybe a little reflection there, something kind of to indicate some fold in the hands. I'll even take a look at my hand here, which you can't see, it's off camera. I'm referencing my own hand a bit. And I'll maybe give this a little more thickness. That's gonna be good. I might be going overkill here. And let's see, now it doesn't look really reflective, does it? But this is where putting in maybe just slight tiny details to give it some extra texture, to give a little bit of that kind of reflective, kind of swirly reflective marks on here. Give it a little bit more dimension. So this doesn't look like it's a regular hand, it's like metallic in a way. I think that'll work right there. Yeah, that'll work. And then we just got to finish up. Let's see. I see something that bothered me. I want to overlap. This was bothering me right here. I want to overlap that. Then I'm going to have this go dark here. Some shadow. And then this line is now out of place. a reflective line, so maybe we'll just kind of do something like that. And that's good. And then the only things left is her right hand and then her face. So I'm gonna leave the face for the end. And we'll just kind of draw in this hand, on the right hand. Again, just giving it just enough, kind of like that, say, a little squiggle there. A little bit of a reflective property. Then we'll get these fingers drawn. That. I think that looks good. That hand is kind of drawn in with a slight perspective. Some shadows. When I say some slight perspective, it's smaller because that hand is kind of going away from her, whereas this one's closer to the center here of the shot. And I say let's add a little bit of line weight here. And I think that looks good. Let's just go ahead and knock out the face. Looking at the hair, I'm thinking I'm gonna have some thicker line weight on the outside of the hair, just to give it more of a feeling of mass, because it is hair, but it's like metallic. I have no idea how it would actually be done in the real world. Would it be loose? I mean, would it be clumps? Would it be strands of metallic hair? I'm not going to worry about it, how it would look in the real world. I'm just going to call it, this is my metallic hair drawing style. All right, let's go ahead and go to the face. One of the things I do with the face, I've got this brush here, my crow quill. It's really good at making bold marks, and I can probably draw fine enough with this, but I find myself when I go to ink faces digitally, I switch it over to like pretty much a finer pen, a brush here. So I've got this technical pen that it's different in that it will get a really fine line. So this is my technical pen here, right? And when I contrast that with my crow quill pen, it doesn't seem to flow as well when I'm doing these finer marks. So that's the reason why I want to start out with a fine pen, because then when I use this technical pen, which is a finer tip, it just is easier to slowly build up the forms when I'm inking this here. So we'll ink in the eyebrow or eyelash, kind of eyelashes here. Again, this is a metallic character. And also this face is going to be pretty small on the page. It's not going to be huge, so it doesn't need a lot of detail on it, but it just needs to have the right amount of detail. So at this distance, I probably won't even put eyelids. Like, I mean, I could draw eyelids on her, but in fact, actually I should. Now that I did that, I think it looks better. So let me really go in there. I kind of just threw those in there to just say that I wasn't going to put them, but now I actually do want to add them. So let's just add them in. Then for the nose. Okay, then we have the mouth, upper lip, lower lip, some shadow in the mouth there. So somewhere in here there'll definitely be a tongue in there. Not fully drawn out, but I gotta leave some space for that. Again, this is gonna be a tiny shot. It's not gonna be huge. Okay, so we've got the basic landmarks for the eyes and the nose. This is where I'm now gonna add maybe some reflective or some, again, just these squiggles to indicate that I want this to be kind of metallic looking. Maybe she's kind of chrome-like. And do I want that? Nope, that makes a big difference. See that, what I did there? Just that one little tick mark. When I pull away, it just doesn't read. So I'm going to remove it, and then it's a lot clearer, a lot cleaner. So let's do that. And we'll add kind of like some Again, some more metallic squiggles. And then maybe just a touch right there on her chin. And let's see, I think because I've done that, what I want to do is put a little more shadow underneath that chin just to help make that pop out a little more, give it more contrast. And right around here is probably where I should stop. There's a tendency to overdo these things, these drawings, and for me that certainly is the case. So I think that should read well when we zoom out to about actual comic size, which is probably going to be somewhere in this range here. So you can see maybe I want to add a little more shadow here. And let's add some of these kind of like some more of these squiggles. There you go. I think that's it right there. Probably thicken up this just a little bit. Something that'll help me determine this is if I turn off the background drawing underneath, which was on a separate layer. I had a white fill on that layer, and I was able to kind of remove, actually I was able to remove any pencil drawing, and this will allow me to see the artwork clearly. Let's see. Some things here I don't like this right here. That's bothering me. This is also bothering me kind of, so I'm going to remove that. And I think I can give the character a little more weight, a little more thickness on the left side here. Her left side here, from her hips, her left thigh. Just want to give this like a nice bold stroke there, just to give the character some dimension. And I think I'm done. Yes, I'm going to call this done. If I come back to this and I decide I need to add some more rendering to it, then I'll do that. But for now, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out.